This is the evening news, bringing you the latest news and information from around the world. I'm Dita Sukarno. Local reports will be today's top stories. And in the ASEAN Windows segment, we have highlights from Singapore. But first, let's take a look at tonight's headlines.
The Trade and Industry Ministry in Jakarta destroying some data on textile exports. UN Secretary General Kofi Annan, in his official message to commemorate the Human Rights Day, calls upon all to uphold human rights and to fight racism and other forms of discriminations. Heavy U.S. bombing rages around Tora Bora in Afghanistan in a continued attempt to capture cave hideouts occupied by Al-Qaeda fighters.
This is TVRI Evening News, the first English news in the country.
Those were the headlines, and now we go over to our first report. The 9th floor of the Trade and Industry Department building, which burned this morning around 11 o'clock, was a storage place for data on export quotas for textiles and other textile products.
The State Minister for Trade and Industry, Rini Suwandi, who arrived at 12:30, did not comment much on the incident. She said that this accident could happen anywhere. She confirmed that the 9th floor was a data storage place for export quotas on textiles and textile products. Export quotas for textiles and textile products are currently a sensitive matter, especially to the textile exporters, since the price of several textiles products destined for countries such as the US, the EU, Norway and Canada is on the decline, albeit still profitable. As a result, several large and small-scale textile exporters were trying to get quotas, although they did not necessarily meet the qualifications. According to the State Minister for Trade and Industry, Rini Suwandi, she will move the location for textile quotas elsewhere to better serve the people. One eyewitness stated that he heard something exploded before the fire started. 15 units of firefighter trucks had difficulty in extinguishing the fire because the emergency exit door was locked and most of the hydrants were damaged. The police are still investigating the cause of the fire.
The United Nations recently reminded that increased number of human rights violation cases in several countries is a sign of danger.
This was the noted message of the United Nations Secretary General Kofi Annan in his official address to commemorate Human Rights Day, which falls on December 10th. The address was announced by the United Nations Information Center yesterday in Jakarta. The message also noted the importance of early precautions and of taking immediate steps to uphold human rights in order to safeguard the people of a nation and its neighboring countries. The United Nations Secretary General also emphasized the importance of taking a stance against terrorism, reminding everyone that the human rights we are fighting for should be universal ones in the interest of all people. The official message also touched on the need to fight racism and all other forms of discriminations. Kofi Annan called upon the whole world to respect the rights of all people on this planet Earth, regardless of gender, skin color, creed or nationality, as equal human beings.
Railway operator PT Kereta Api Indonesia will provide 4 additional trains to cope with significant increases in the number of passengers during the last few days before the Idul Fitri holidays.
The additional trains, which will each be equipped with 8 wagons, will provide a total of 1,600 additional seats for executive and business classes. All additional trains will be scheduled to operate from Jakarta's Gambir railway station. The additional train schedules to be provided are the Taksaka Business to Yogyakarta at 9:45 a.m. on the 14th and 15th of December, the Cirebon Express to Cirebon West Java at 5:05 a.m. on the 13th of December, the Gajayana to Malang East Java at 5:25 a.m. from the 10th to 31st of December, and the Argo Bromo to Surabaya East Java at 7:45 a.m. from the 13th to 15th of December. With regard to economy class trains running from Jakarta Senen Railway Station, from the 10th of December, all tickets will be sold without seat numbers. The railway company will also provide additional wagons to ensure that all passengers are transported during this peak season.
Increased traffic is predicted to occur on the Cikampek Toll Road during the last 3 days before the Idul Fitri holidays. This was noted by officials of Jasa Marga toll operator, who also projected a 140% increase in the traffic compared to normal condition.
Ongoing road construction projects in several areas in Karawang, it is feared will also lead to increased congestion on the toll road. In preparation for increased traffic during the Idul Fitri holidays, the toll operator will provide additional toll gates at busy areas. As of today, the police have set up a traffic control post at a strategic location on the toll road. The chief of the West Java Police, Inspector General Sudirman Ail, noted that the police will do their best to help the public and called upon those taking long trips to be extra careful.
(3,200 personnel, or 2 out of 3 of the total police force in the Lampung area, will be spread out in the Lampung area to secure the increased flow of people as they go home for Idul Fitri, Christmas and New Year.
At least 3,200 police personnel together with special forces and personnel from the Air Force will be stationed in several locations considered dangerous to secure the flow of people who are going back to their hometowns for Idul Fitri, Christmas and New Year. This will be the biggest deployment by the Lampung Police of the police force in Lampung province. According to the Lampung Chief of Police, Brigadier General Sugiri, during the official deployment ceremony, Sugiri said that 130 out of 3,200 are snipers. These snipers will be located in the places most likely to be hit by criminals, such as Bakaheni Airport and Rajabasa Terminal. These snipers will keep moving to secure the areas likely to be hit by criminals. Meanwhile, the governor of Lampung, Umar Sono, hopes that the putting of police personnel in several areas considered to be dangerous will ensure that people going back to their hometowns for Idul Fitri, Christmas and New Year will be safe.
This is TVRI Evening News, the first English news in the country.
Fierce fighting and heavy U.S. bombing raged around Tora Bora on Friday in a continued attempt to capture a cave hideout occupied by Al-Qaeda fighters.
Fierce fighting and heavy U.S. bombing raged around Tora Bora on Friday in a continued attempt to capture cave hideouts occupied by Al-Qaeda fighters. Anti-Taliban forces believe that it is here in the mountainous of Afghanistan that Osama bin Laden is still hiding. Whilst U.S. fighters struck from above, Al-Qaeda fighters also rained mortar shells, rockets and bullets from higher in the mountains on the tribal forces attacking them. Hundreds of tribal forces have been attacking the caves this week, trying to dislodge the Al-Qaeda forces who fled here after the rout of the Taliban in most of Afghanistan. They are also mindful of a $25 million reward for Osama bin Laden, who they believe could be hiding in the area.
38 people have been killed in southeastern Kenya this week after rival groups of farmers and herders clashed over grazing rights.
Fighting between tenants and landlords in Kiberia, a sprawling district of shanty houses, open sewers and mud lanes, was triggered last week by a dispute over rent. Sporadic clashes boiled over into all-out battles on Tuesday, when at least 10 people were hacked to death with knives and machetes. Residents and witnesses said houses were burned, homes looted, and women raped. Riot police continued to fire tear gas canisters to disperse unruly people and also continued to monitor developments of insecurity within the slum. In Kambimuru, a village within Kiberia, people on Wednesday fled their burning houses on foot, unable to salvage any household items from the fire that engulfed a row of 6 mud huts. Others rushed to load their belongings onto bicycles, carts and vehicles, while hundreds more took refuge at the Kiberia district officers' camp. The dispute overran broadly pits members of the Luo tribe, many of whom are tenants in Kibera, against the Nubians, a mostly Muslim group of Sudanese origin that owns many of the Santis, though police said other groups were involved. Kibera's claustrophobic mess of rusted roof and piles of rubbish may be a wall away from President Daniel Arap Moi's upmarket home in a suburb just next door. But with a population of around 1 million, analysts say it is a constituency politicians cannot ignore. Analysts say that this violence has been instigated by politicians, a strategy aimed at gaining votes before the coming 2002 elections.
4 Brazilians have confessed to attacking the moored vessel of New Zealand yachtsman Peter Blake at an Amazon River outpost, saying they fired the shots that killed Blake in self-defense. Federal police in Macapa, the last major stop on the Amazon River before it meets the Atlantic Ocean, arrested on Friday 7 men in the death world-renowned sportsman, New Zealand yachtsman Peter Blake, after police launched a manhunt on the express orders of Brazil's president. Police freed 3 suspects later on Friday. The remaining 4, aged between 21 and 27, said they boarded Blake's steamer vessel late on Wednesday night. Conviction for assault, robbery, and drug trafficking. Police continue to scour the rainforest and waterways of Amapa for an 8th suspect. Pearl Harbor survivors have commemorated the 60th anniversary of Japan's surprise raid on the U.S. Pacific Fleet, a day President Franklin Delano Roosevelt described as a date which will live in infamy. To Norfolk, Virginia, U.S. President George W. Bush told Navy officers aboard the USS Enterprise that after 60 years, American servicemen are still freedom defender.
Holds this memorial this morning.
Pearl Harbor survivors gathered aboard the USS Arizona on Friday to remember their fellow servicemen and the early morning raid, which forever shattered several generations' sense of security. Survivors tossed flowers into the harbor as a symbolic acknowledgement of the watery graves that were the fate for many other servicemen. The ceremony concluded with a 21-gun salute and the playing of taps.
Pearl Harbor was quite literally a different era than after Pearl Harbor. Every American learns the Pledge of Allegiance, and every American is taught about George Washington, and every American knows about Pearl Harbor. What happened here in this place profoundly altered our national experience.
U.S. Chief of Naval Operations Vern Card commended the group for their valor and for being an example to generations of other servicemen. U.S. President George W. Bush also reflected on the anniversary when he addressed U.S. Navy personnel from the USS Enterprise in Norfolk, Virginia.
On December the 7th, 1941, the enemy attacked. Today's an anniversary of a tragedy for the United States Navy. Yet out of that tragedy, America built the strongest Navy in the world. And there's no better symbol of that strength than the USS Enterprise. What happened at Pearl Harbor was the start of a long and terrible war for America. Yet out of that surprise attack grew a steadfast resolve that made America freedom's defender.
On the ground and bombed. Most of them were disabled. That crippled our effort. The attack was carried.
Rescue workers were gathered with the Navy, New York City's top officials at Ground Zero to light their own Christmas tree at the site of the September 11 attacks on the World Trade Center.
In the opening ceremony on Friday, New York City Mayor Rudolph Giuliani asked rescue team members to make sure this year's celebration was especially festive. Mayor Rudy Giuliani said this year's Christmas celebration should be especially festive to ensure those responsible for the atrocities couldn't be seen to have robbed New Yorkers of the things they held dear.
To do one thing, and that's why the lighting of this Christmas tree is so important symbolically and for other reasons. I ask you this Christmas season, and Hanukkah, and Ramadan, and Kwanzaa, and are there any others, Father? Did we miss any? The Chinese New Year. And I'm sure we missed someone who will write a letter to me on Monday. But during this beautiful and wonderful holiday season, let's make sure we celebrate it with even more enthusiasm this year. Let's make sure we celebrate it with even more dedication this year.
This is TVRI Evening News, the first English news in the country.
A week after giving birth a baby girl, Japanese Princess Masako on Saturday checked out of the Palace Hospital in Tokyo, cradling the infant in her arms.
A week after giving birth to a baby girl, Japanese Crown Princess Masako on Saturday checked out of the Palace Hospital in Tokyo, cradling the infant in her arms. It was the public's first glimpse of the royal family's newest member. Accompanying Masako was her husband, Crown Prince Naruhito, who grinned broadly as the mother held their baby before television cameras broadcasting live from the hospital entrance. Their daughter, named Aiko, on Friday was wrapped tightly in a long white cloth. After bowing to nurses and doctors, the family left the palace complex in a limousine and processed to their residence in central Tokyo. Masako waved to cheering crowds as the royal cavalcade drove through streets lined with rising sun flags. A palace spokesman speaking on condition of anonymity said mother and daughter were in good health. Tens of thousands of well-wishers flocked to the imperial palace to celebrate the arrival of Masako and Naruhito's first child after 8 years of marriage.
The British Tourist Authority is about to launch its biggest ever overseas marketing campaign in the hope of luring back the thousands of American tourists frightened away by the September 11 terrorist attacks in the United States.
The British Tourist Authority is about to launch its biggest ever overseas marketing campaign in the hope of luring back the thousands of American tourists frightened away by the September 11 terrorist attacks in the United States. A government report released on Friday showed that the number of tourists visiting Britain has plunged following the September 11 attacks.
Clearly, our business nosedived. Really. The problem we've got is that 40% of our visitors come from America, normally, and that's largely dried up.
The number of holiday makers to the UK fell by 31% in October compared to the same time last year, seasonally adjusted figures from the Office for National Statistics reveal. Tourist numbers fell by 234,000 from 720,000 to 406,000 between October 2000 and October 2001. The non-seasonally adjusted figures reveal.
It's not going to put us off.
The message being sent around the world in January's tourism campaign is that Britain is a safe tourist destination, but it will depend largely on Americans regaining their confidence to travel.
The final outturn is likely to be closer to £2 billion. Now, tourism is one of the UK's biggest industries, and it employs nearly 2 million people, so that matters to businesses and it matters to individuals.
Meanwhile, trips overseas by UK residents rose by 1% between August and October.
Continuing with reports from the ASEAN Window segment, we have a report from MCS Singapore on Hong Kong hairy crab, and we'll have highlights of the Ramadan fasting month from Palembang. Stay tuned for more right after this. Hong Kong Foods Hygiene Inspector have begun a sweep of retailers and importers of hairy crabs after it was reported in the local media that traces of antibiotics were found in crab samples. Channel News Asia's Hong Kong correspondent Melissa Heng with this report.
Report that prompted health officials to act, claims by a local magazine that hairy crabs here in Hong Kong, imported from the mainland, have been found to be contaminated. The reports say that based on the results of a laboratory test it commissioned, some hairy crabs here contain traces of oxytetracycline and chlorophenicol, potent but not particularly dangerous antibiotics. Nonetheless, inspectors have been sent out to retailers, wholesalers and importers, and official tests are being carried out. It's believed mainland farmers might be using the antibiotics to prevent crabs from becoming sick before they are exported. It's also possible, one medical expert says, that antibiotics are being used in the tanks to keep bacteria away.
It's crabs like this that have got all of Hong Kong talking, but health officials say they're not ready to issue a warning that might trigger an unnecessary panic. They've got crabs at their own labs, they say, and when the official results are known, then they'll decide what course of action to take.
In the meantime, health officials insist all food here in Hong Kong is safe.
And since 1998, a total of over 1,000 samples, including seafood, have been examined. Chlorophenicol and oxytetracycline were not found.
They also stress that even if the reports are true and contaminated crabs have been consumed, there's still no cause for major alarm.
The potential risk associated with the consumption of crabs containing the levels of the antibiotics as quoted in the reports is very low.
Concern on the streets is clearly growing, but in a city that loves its food, some are not deterred.
擔心㗎都，不過又為食，咁啊食少啲咯，但係都係食下，自己買返屋企洗乾淨啲，蒸熟啲食咯。
Hairy crabs are considered a popular winter delicacy here in Hong Kong, and millions are consumed around this time each year. Shops depending on the sale are putting a brave face on the situation.
咩有問題？
點啊？有冇？
冇問題，冇問題。
點你即係覺得點解咧？
因為啲人都識㗎嘛，佢知道呢啲係真嘅就唔怕食㗎嘛。呢啲係靚蟹嚟㗎嘛。
But prices are already plummeting, and with official test results not due for another fortnight, these retailers could be looking at a tough winter ahead. Melissa Heng, Channel News Asia in Hong Kong.
With a capacity to host 1,000 guests, Darul Said Mosque in Kenyan is among the largest ones in Palembang, South Sumatra.
The mosque was built on a 5,000 square meters of land in 1976 by the families of the late Haji Sukarno Said and Haji Abi Hassan Said. The mosque was later renovated in 1988 to accommodate a larger number of users. Located on Jalan Mukhtar Prabu Negara in Kenyan, the Darul Said Mosque also has an Islamic kindergarten and school. As is commonly practiced during the fasting month of Ramadan, the mosque holds a number of special religious activities such as Quran recitals and Quranic studies, as well as the regular Tarawih prayers.
Ten Southeast Asian nations. We call it ASEAN. 500 million people call it home. But the spirited traveler calls it paradise. Blissful retreats, white sand beaches, azure waters, a haven to wild flora and rare fauna. A shopper's delight and a gourmet's pride. Destination ASEAN. Come home to paradise.
Next on sports, we have highlights from Britain and Malaysia. Stay tuned right after this. Manchester United and England star David Beckham had his body and brain scanned on the operating table to remove all his soccer computer game.
The Sony PlayStation and Nintendo Game Boy Advance computer game advert begins with the England captain lying topless in an operating theater as a vertical probe scans his body and his brain, sucking out all his soccer knowledge. Doctors stand in the background in silhouette while Beckham's body is shown covered in sensors and monitors, measuring his reflexes and transferring his footballing thoughts as he takes on his cyber-like image. David Beckham Soccer is an exciting, fast-paced soccer game which utilizes the very latest in handheld and console technology, and is the only football game available to contain unique features and content on David Beckham's one of the world's biggest football stars. The Manchester United player was overlooked on Wednesday for his team's Champions League victory against Boa Vista, is said to face crucial talks over the next couple of weeks to determine whether he has a long-term future at the club. United's manager, Sir Alex Ferguson, believes Beckham's superhuman efforts for England in the recent World Cup qualifiers have caught up with the midfielder. The club is about to enter the 8th month of negotiation with the England captain's advisors, but is no closer to reaching an agreement.
And that concludes tonight's edition of the Evening News. Be sure to join us again tomorrow on the same channel, TVRI. I'm Dita Sukarno. Thank you very much for watching and good night.